Hello, thank you for visiting the channel. Today, I want to tell you a story about a case that seems like it only happens in horror movies but is a real haunting. Blood, dark, thick, patchy red streaks on the white canopy of the lifeboat, stretching like an open wound in the middle of the deep blue sea. On the morning of July 2005, on the luxury cruise ship Royal Caribbean, a 16-year-old girl opened the balcony door of her room to catch the morning breeze. But instead of the peaceful view of the Mediterranean, she was stunned. Just below, a long trail of blood trailed to the edge of the canopy. Next to it was a clear skid mark as if someone had struggled, then fallen off the deck into the bottomless sea. Just a few hours ago, this place was filled with the laughter of a young couple enjoying their dream honeymoon. Now, that boy George Smith disappeared. No one knows where he went, or what happened behind the door of room number 962 that fateful night. It all started like a dream that any couple would wish for. George Smith, a 26-year-old man from the peaceful town of Greenwich, Connecticut, is known for being intelligent, lively, and sociable with everyone. He grew up in the loving arms of his parents and younger sister Bree. The Smith family is not rich and luxurious, but lives comfortably and closely. His father, George Smith Sr., owns a small liquor store in town which is both a livelihood and a source of pride for the family. George graduated with a business degree from Babson College, Massachusetts, a prestigious school. After that, he worked in Boston as a computer data analyst. The job was stable and the salary was good, but deep inside, George still longed to return to take over the liquor store, so that his parents could rest after many years of hard work. He not only wanted to preserve the family business, but also wanted to develop it into a well-known brand. In 2002, at a meeting with old friends, George met Jennifer, a beautiful girl from the same hometown who had just taken a new job as an elementary school teacher. Jennifer was quick, active, and also ambitious. Between them, feelings came naturally, without the need for ostentatious flirting. After only a few months, the two became inseparable. Their love progressed rapidly, supported by both family and friends. 3 years later, when George turned 26, he proposed to Jennifer. She agreed without hesitation. The wedding was held at Castle Hill in a hotel located on a cliff in Newport, Rhode Island, with a direct view of the blue ocean. That day, the sky was cloudless, the sea breeze was gentle, and white ribbons were fluttering in the sun. Everyone believed that this would be the beginning of a lifelong love story. Like many other couples, they wanted to preserve the sweet moment with a special honeymoon. Their choice was a 12-day cruise on the luxury ship Royal Caribbean, along the Mediterranean coast. On June 29, 2005, they departed from Barcelona, Spain. Their itinerary took them through the romantic Côte d'Azur of France, then along the Italian coast, before reaching the poetic Greek islands. On the ship, George and Jennifer quickly integrated into this small but vibrant world. They befriended Josh Askin, a 20-year-old boy from California, funny and talkative, and a group of young Russian Americans including Greg Rosenberg, Zach Rosenberg, and Rostislav Kaufman. The freedom of the seas made them easy companions, exploring every port the ship visited together. On July 4th, Independence Day, the ship anchored at Mykonos, Greece. George, Jennifer, and their friends wandered the white stone streets, drank coffee at a beachside cafe, and jumped into the cool, clear water. They had dinner at a small restaurant overlooking the ocean, where the sound of waves mingled with traditional Greek music. It was one of the best days of the trip. Back on the ship, the group decided to continue having fun. They chose the casino on board as their stop. George and Josh sat at the craps table, the sound of dice rolling and the cheers. Jennifer tried her luck at the poker table, chatting with Greg. Wine and cocktails were served continuously, and the laughter was intoxicating. George and Jennifer were unlucky that night, losing quite a bit of money, but they didn't care. Money can be earned back, but not this moment, George laughed, raising his glass. At around 2:30 a.m., security cameras captured George leaving the casino with his friends. Jennifer appeared to have had quite a few drinks, staggering as she leaned against Lloyd Botha, the casino manager. Some witnesses said that there was something more intimate than usual between the two. At 3:30 a.m., Jennifer left the group and went down a different hallway to the one leading back to her room. George stayed with his friends, and at this point, the conversation began to take a turn. Someone in the group brought out a bottle of absinthe, a strong liquor with more than 70 proof, which was banned from being brought on board. They drank in the middle of the hallway, laughing and talking loudly despite the quiet night around them. At around 4 a.m., Mr. and Mrs. Chit Hyman, who were in the next room 962, were awakened by noise. They heard arguing, the sound of furniture moving, and then a heavy thud, as if something had fallen onto the roof of the lifeboat below. Mr. Hyman opened the door and saw 3 men leave room 962, walking quickly as if they wanted to disappear down the hallway. George never reappeared after that moment. In a few hours, the morning light would reveal a dark red stain on the lifeboat's roof, and a chilling mystery would begin to cast a shadow over the seemingly perfect honeymoon. But was it accidental? Or was it the work of someone else? On the morning of July 5, 2005, the gentle glow of the Mediterranean filled the decks of the Royal Caribbean. The ship was drifting slowly near the Greek island of Mykonos. In many cabins, passengers were just waking up, preparing to enjoy a sunny day. But on deck 7, a chilling sight awaited. Emily Rausch, a 16-year-old girl from Chicago, opened the balcony door to breathe in the fresh air and froze. Just below her room, on the white canopy of the lifeboat, was a long, dark red stain, thick, wet, and cold, that could not be anything other than blood. The blood trail reached the edge of the canopy, and there was a long slide mark beside it, as if someone had fallen down after being seriously injured. Emily felt her heart rate increase. She quickly closed the door, ran into her room to call her mother, and immediately informed the ship's staff. The news spread like a gust of wind down the corridors. There's blood on the lifeboat's roof. Many other passengers from nearby rooms also stepped out onto the balcony, shocked by the same scene. Some whispered, "Someone fell into the sea." The atmosphere on the ship suddenly became thick. The security department quickly sealed off the area of Deck 7, asking passengers to stay in their cabins. Security and management personnel ran down the hallway, knocking on each room door to check the passenger list. When they checked, they found one name missing, George Smith, 26, who had just gotten married a few days ago. While the entire ship was starting to panic, Jennifer, George's wife, was in an unexpected place. The ship's spa. She was lying on the massage bed, her eyes half closed. When the security personnel found her and announced that her husband was missing, Jennifer opened her eyes wide, as if she had just been woken up from a dream. She said she didn't know where George was and hadn't been worried since early morning because she thought he had slept in a friend's room after a night of partying. This explanation puzzled many people. She had just gotten married. Her husband had disappeared the night before, yet she still calmly went to the spa as if nothing had happened. This seemed inconsistent with the reaction of a wife who had just finished her honeymoon. That afternoon, the ship docked at Mykonos to pick up Turkish authorities for investigation. The captain reassured the passengers that this was a necessary measure and called for cooperation. But behind those gentle words, he understood clearly. His ship was becoming the scene of a serious disappearance, possibly even a murder. The investigators entered room 962 where George and Jennifer were staying. The scene before them did not resemble a room of a newlywed couple after a romantic night. The bed sheets were crumpled with small but obvious blood stains. The towels were scattered, also stained with blood. A chair was pulled close to the balcony railing. On the armrest, there were marks as if someone had just sat or been placed there. Outside on the balcony, the sea breeze blew in, but the curtains were tightly drawn as if to hide something outside. Under the lifeboat roof, the blood stains Emily had seen were now confirmed to be real. Investigators began to imagine a scenario. George had been attacked in his room, then somehow fallen off the balcony, leaving a trail of blood on the way. But the biggest question was it an accident or was someone pushing him down? The last people with George the night before were a group of new friends. Josh Askin, Greg Rosenberg, Zach Rosenberg, and Rostislav Kaufman. They said George was too drunk to walk, so they helped him back to his room, put him on the bed, and left. But the key card data showed that the group returned to room 962 shortly after. Why? Some witnesses on the same floor said that after the group entered George's room, they heard a loud argument. This was followed by a loud bang, then a heavy sound like a body falling onto something hard. Some also heard a woman screaming. But strangely, no one saw George leave the room afterwards. Instead, they saw 3 men hurrying out of the room. And the 4th man, no one was sure what he was doing there or how he left. The case became even more suspicious when the ship staff revealed that the group had been drinking absinthe that night, a very strong liquor that is banned on board. They drank in the middle of the hallway, getting so drunk they lost control. At the same time, Jennifer was seen staggering against Lloyd Botha, the casino manager. Some thought she was just looking for a place to lean on because she was so drunk, but others thought she was flirting. At around 3:30 a.m., Jennifer left the group and went down a hallway that was completely different from the one leading to her room. Security later found her asleep in the hallway, quite a distance from her cabin. She was taken back to her room in a wheelchair at around 5 a.m. By then, George had disappeared. Investigators began to piece together the puzzle. The friends were drinking illegal liquor. George was too drunk to walk. There were signs of a struggle in the room. Blood was in the room and on the lifeboat roof. Jennifer had disappeared from her husband overnight, and the mysterious appearance and disappearance of one of the friends. In the hallways, rumors began to spread, growing more and more creepy. One passenger said he overheard someone joking, "We gave him a lesson in skydiving without a parachute." In the context of a person missing at sea, this statement is like a cold knife stabbing into everyone's imagination, but that's just the surface. How much more lies behind the vast blue waves? Was this an accident or a murder with a sophisticated cover-up? And if it was a murder, who was keeping silent to protect the perpetrator? As the Turkish investigation team began questioning those involved, they quickly realized that this was no ordinary disappearance. Each statement was like a distorted puzzle piece, not fitting together. There were huge gaps in each person's story, and it was those gaps that made the case even more terrifying. Jennifer, George's wife, was the first to be questioned. She said that after leaving the casino on the night of July 4, she did not remember where she had gone. She only knew that when she woke up the next morning, George was not in the room. To her, that was not unusual because her husband sometimes stayed up late with friends, and she assumed he had slept somewhere. That was why, she said, she calmly went to the spa that morning without looking for him. But investigators knew that this story did not quite fit. They had the security guard's account. At about 4:50 a.m., Jennifer was found asleep in the hallway some distance from her room. She could not walk back by herself, so two security guards and a female employee took her back to her room in a wheelchair. The question was, why was she there? And between the time she left the group and the time she was discovered, where did she go and what did she do? The story of George's new group of friends was even more confusing. Josh Askin, an American from California, testified that after Jennifer left, George continued drinking with the group. At this point, George was so drunk that he could not walk on his own. They helped him back to his room, put him on the bed, took off his shoes, and left. But the key card data showed that they returned to room 962 shortly afterwards. Why? Josh did not explain clearly. Greg Rosenberg and Zach Rosenberg, two cousins, gave similar statements, but added that after dropping George off, they ordered food to eat in their room with him. But when the room service log was checked, the investigator discovered that their cabin had been blocked from ordering food the day before because of disturbances. No orders were made during the time they mentioned. Was that late-night meal just a fabrication to fill the time gap? Witnesses on the same floor clearly remembered hearing loud arguments coming from room 962, mixed with the sound of furniture being pushed and then a heavy sound like a body falling on a hard object. Some even claimed to hear a woman screaming. But where was Jennifer at that time? If that scream wasn't hers, then who was it? When asked about the relationship between George and Jennifer, the accounts were also different. Some said they always saw the two of them happy and intimate, but others said they witnessed Jennifer lightly slapping George while drunk at the casino. It was unclear whether it was a joke or not. There were also rumors about Jennifer being too intimate with Lloyd Botha, the casino manager, right in front of her husband. It is worth noting that Lloyd Botha denied everything. He said he greeted Jennifer, but nothing else happened. Keycard data shows Lloyd returned to his room at around 3:25 a.m. before the events in room 962 began. Amidst this maze of testimony, one particular detail stands out: a video that was allegedly taken shortly after George disappeared. In the clip, three men, Greg Rosenberg and Rostislav Kaufman, can be seen laughing and saying, "We gave him a lesson in parachuting without a parachute." In the context of a missing person at sea, this statement was so chilling that investigators took it as a crucial clue. Josh Askin, when asked about the video, was evasive. He failed the FBI polygraph test, but still insisted he had nothing to do with George's disappearance. Greg and Zach invoked their Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, refusing to answer questions that might incriminate them. For investigators, all they had were conflicting accounts, a murky video, and unexplained blood stains. But what they sensed was clear: Among the last people with George, someone was hiding a big secret. Many theories arose. One was a robbery. George and Jennifer were targeted because they were carrying large amounts of cash and expensive jewelry. That night, George wore a bridling watch, Jennifer a diamond ring. Words about the amount of cash they were carrying had spread around the ship tens of thousands of dollars, enough to make them targets. The second theory, a disagreement erupted. Alcohol combined with George's strong personality may have led to a fight with his friends. During the fight, George was pushed or fell off the balcony. The third theory, the scariest of all, is that both happened. It started as a robbery, but as things got out of hand, it turned into a murder. What really happened in room 962 that night, no one would say. And it was that silence that caused the case to sink deeper into obscurity. Pressure from the American media and public opinion erupted just days after news of George's disappearance broke. His family in Connecticut immediately spoke out, insisting that this was not an accident. They requested the FBI's involvement, believing that only the Federal Investigation Agency could solve this mystery. When the federal agents boarded the Royal Caribbean, the already tense atmosphere on the ship became even more oppressive. The FBI began by reviewing all the security cameras. The footage was blurry because of the yellow lights and blind spots on the ship, making it a nightmare to piece together the events. But they still determined some important milestones. 2:30 a.m., George left the casino. 3:30 a.m. Jennifer left the group of friends, going down another hallway toward the cabin. Around 4 a.m., the new friends returned to room 962. Then there was a series of loud noises, arguing, banging, and a heavy thud. The FBI decided to question each person individually. Jennifer was the first. In the makeshift interrogation room set up right on the ship, she sat up straight, her voice calm, answering each question fluently. The polygraph test showed that she passed. This surprised many people because before that, rumors and strange details of her behavior had led public opinion to lean towards the hypothesis that she was directly involved. But the biggest surprise was that Josh Askin, the funny guy who was last known to be with George, failed the polygraph test. This made him the center of suspicion. When questioned, Josh dodged many questions, even citing the Fifth Amendment to refuse to answer anything that could incriminate him. Greg Rosenberg and Rostislav Kaufman, two of the group of friends, also kept a defensive attitude. When the FBI asked about the leaked video in which they laughed and said, "We gave him a lesson in skydiving without a parachute," both immediately withdrew, saying it was just a drunken joke. But to the investigator, the statement was not funny. In the context of a missing person at sea, it had the color of a joke confession, more chilling than funny. As the FBI dug into the data, they found new inconsistencies. Greg had claimed that his group had ordered food to their room that night to eat with George, but room service records confirmed that their cabin had been blocked from ordering food the night before for violating regulations. Was that late supper real or just a cover for something else? Several witnesses said they saw the group leaving George's room in a hurry. Another said that around 4 a.m., he heard a woman screaming, but no one could confirm whether it was Jennifer. Under pressure from public opinion, George's family decided to hire one of the most famous forensic experts in the country. Dr. Henry Lee went to the scene, measured the height of the balcony railing, examined the blood stains, and the position of the chair pulled close to the railing. His initial conclusion made George's family shudder. The possibility of George falling accidentally was almost zero. According to Henry Lee's analysis, to fall from the balcony to the lifeboat roof with such a trajectory and location of the blood, George must have been pushed or had a struggle beforehand. He proposed to recreate the scene with a dummy to verify this hypothesis, but his request was flatly rejected by the ship's owner. This refusal made the family even more suspicious. Was the ship's owner hiding something to protect its image and profits? George's family believed that they were facing not only the mystery of a disappearance, but also a system of power willing to bury the truth at the bottom of the sea. Meanwhile, the FBI continued to review the testimony, trying to find intersections between the stories. But the more they searched, the more they encountered a thick wall of silence. Many questions remained unanswered. Why did the group of friends return to George's room in the middle of the night? Who stayed the longest? Why were only 3 people seen leaving the room? And why was there that video? George's family, unwilling to sit still, offered a $100,000 reward for information that would help solve the case. They went to the newspapers, to television, and called on the public to put pressure on the investigation to continue. But as time passed, the waves still swallowed all the answers. And in that vast silence, the biggest question still hung in the air. Did someone on that ship, on that fateful night, see the truth but chose to remain silent? Time passed, the Royal Caribbean ship left the Greek Sea, but George Smith's disappearance still hung like a heavy shadow in his family's hearts. Every day, every hour, they realized that the truth was not easily revealed. The pieces of the investigation were falling apart. The testimonies were like dead ends, leading to dark alleys. The FBI continued its work. They doggedly searched for details, reviewed cameras, compared statements. But the more they worked, the more they ran into unfillable gaps. Someone, or maybe several people, was keeping what they knew from them. And if a truth is hidden at the bottom of the ocean, no one knows how long it will stay there. While the authorities struggled with the scattered pieces, the relationship between George and Jennifer's family grew increasingly fractured. They had been on the same side, sharing a common desire to find justice, but everything changed when the shipowner offered a civil settlement of $1 million. Jennifer accepted. For George's parents, it was a blow to their last hope. In their eyes, accepting the settlement meant closing the door to justice, as if accepting that the incident was an accident. They believed that by agreeing, Jennifer had given up on the investigation. The already fragile trust between them had officially collapsed. Not willing to give up, George's family offered a $100,000 reward for anyone who could provide information leading to a resolution of the case. They appeared on television shows, gave interviews to the press, and urged the public to put pressure on the authorities and the shipping company. Someone on that ship knows what happened, George's father said on television, and one day they will have to speak up. Forensic expert Henry Lee also completed his own independent investigation. Although he was unable to release the full results due to legal constraints, he insisted the possibility that George had accidentally fallen was almost zero. According to him, the blood stains, the position of the chair against the railing, and the signs of a struggle in the room suggested that George may have been attacked or at least had a struggle before falling off the balcony. Henry Lee offered to recreate the scene to prove the hypothesis, but the shipowners firmly refused. The reason given was that it was unnecessary. For George's family, this answer was like a wall preventing them from accessing the truth. Finally, after years of investigation without finding direct evidence, the FBI announced that the case was closed. They concluded that the cause of death was accidental and that there was not enough basis to prosecute anyone. This conclusion was like a knife twisting into the Smith family's heart. No justice, no explanation, no grave to remember. George was swallowed by the sea, and with him the truth disappeared. Jennifer moved away from the public eye, remarried a few years later, and took up charity work in memory of George. But for his parents and sister, the pain never went away. Every year on July 5, they go to the beach, stand still and watch the waves, wondering what did their son go through in his final moments, who was with him then, and why, after all these years, has no one spoken. There are secrets that, once buried at the bottom of the sea, will forever remain in the dark. And there are cases that, despite years of investigation, still leave only the question hanging, will justice ever find its way out to sea?